What if I told you that the man who is about to become the next owner of CNN, yes, that's CNN, just threw a private invitation-only dinner in Washington, D.C. to honor Donald Trump, not a public event, not a press conference, a quiet, intimate, candlelit dinner held at a building that used to be called the United States Institute of Peace until Trump slapped his own name on it. That's right. The man who could be controlling what CNN puts on air in a matter of months sat down to wine and dine the President of the United States while his $111 billion deal to buy CNN's parent company is still waiting for government approval. You tell me, does that sound like a coincidence to you? Or does it sound like something else entirely? If nobody in your life is telling you this story, that's exactly why this channel exists. Hit subscribe right now so you never miss what they don't want you to know. We break it down, we connect the dots, and we don't take a dime from any of these people. Hit that button. This is Nation Pulse. Now let's slow down, because this story is deeper than most people realize, and if you only read the headline, you're going to miss the whole thing. Let's start with the man at the center of all of it. David Ellison. If that name doesn't ring a bell, that's by design. David Ellison is not a household name, not yet, but he is about to become one of the most powerful figures in American media, and that means he's about to have an enormous amount of influence over what you see, what you hear, and what stories get told about your government. So who is he? David Ellison is the CEO of Paramount Skydance. His company already completed a merger last year with Paramount, the parent company of CBS News. So right now, today, David Ellison already controls CBS News. He's already in the news business, but he wants more. His company is in the middle of trying to close a massive deal. We're talking $111 billion to buy Warner Brothers Discovery. And if you don't know what Warner Brothers Discovery owns, let me spell it out for you. HBO, the Harry Potter franchise, Warner Brothers Studios, and yes, CNN. That's the ball game right there. If this deal goes through, David Ellison goes from controlling one major news network to controlling two of the biggest news operations in the entire country. CBS News and CNN under the same roof, under the same ownership. That is an extraordinary amount of power. And what David Ellison does with that power, how he shapes those newsrooms, what stories get covered, which ones don't, that affects every single American, whether you watch CNN or not. So the question we should all be asking right now is, can we trust David Ellison to be independent? Can we trust that he's going to let journalists do their jobs without interference? Can we trust that these newsrooms won't become something else entirely? Well, let's look at what he's already done, and then let's look at what happened this week. And then you tell me what you think. Here's what's already gone down at CBS News since Ellison took over. And honestly, this should have been front page news, but most people missed it. Shortly after David Ellison finalized his control of Paramount and CBS News, he made a move that shocked a lot of people inside the journalism world. He hired Bari Weiss to be the new editor-in-chief of CBS News. Now, if you know who Bari Weiss is, you already have a reaction to that. If you don't, here's the quick version. Bari Weiss is a media personality and commentator who founded a publication called The Free Press. She's been one of the loudest voices in the so-called anti-woke media movement. She's positioned herself as an outsider, a truth teller, a warrior against mainstream media bias. What she is not is an experienced television news executive. She had zero experience running a TV newsroom before Ellison installed her at the helm of one of the most storied broadcast news organizations in American history. Ellison reportedly paid $150 million to acquire the Free Press and make this happen. $150 million. People inside CBS News reportedly started grumbling almost immediately. Sources began telling reporters that the network's coverage had started shifting in a more Trump-friendly direction. Some staffers reportedly started calling it, and I want you to hear this clearly, state TV. And it gets worse. Back in January, Trump went on CBS Evening News and told the anchor, Tony Dokoupil, directly to his face that he wouldn't have a job right now if Democrats had won the 2024 election. Think about that. The president of the United States sat across from a CBS News journalist and essentially said, I own you, on camera, and the anchor didn't really push back. Is that the kind of CBS News you grew up with? Is that the kind of CBS News Edward R. Murrow built? Is that the kind of journalism that holds power accountable, or the kind that bows to it? Now, David Ellison wants to do the same thing at CNN. Let's talk about the deal itself, because the money involved here is almost impossible to comprehend, and money at this level doesn't move without politics. Paramount Skydance is trying to buy Warner Brothers Discovery for $111 billion. That's billion with a B. That makes it one of the biggest media mergers in American history. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Deals this big don't just happen automatically. They require regulatory approval from the federal government, specifically from the Justice Department's Antitrust Division and the FCC. In plain English, the Trump administration has to sign off on this deal. So let me paint a picture for you. David Ellison wants the Trump administration to approve a $111 billion deal that would give him control of CNN. David Ellison throws a private dinner to honor Donald Trump. David Ellison's CBS News invites Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and Trump's Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller to sit at the CBS table at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth goes to a press briefing and publicly says, on the record, in front of cameras, the sooner David Ellison takes over that network, meaning CNN, the better. Trump himself reportedly favored Ellison's bid over Netflix, who was also competing to buy Warner Brothers Discovery. A last-minute canceled meeting between Trump and Netflix's co-CEO apparently sent a signal that Netflix might not get government approval, and Netflix reportedly pulled out of negotiations shortly after. Now, the Justice Department antitrust official says the deal is not being fast-tracked for political reasons. Fine, maybe that's true. But here's what I want you to sit with. All of this is happening out in the open. All of this is visible, and nobody in mainstream media is making a big deal out of it. Probably because the mainstream media is the story. This is the fox asking the farmer to watch the hen house, and the farmer is throwing the fox a dinner party while he thinks about it. Now let's get into the specifics of this dinner, because the details here are not subtle. The event took place on April 23rd in Washington, D.C., 2 days before the White House Correspondents' Dinner on April 25th. It was described as an intimate gathering, private, invitation only. The dinner honored two groups, President Donald Trump and CBS News White House correspondents. So you've got a media executive hosting the President of the United States alongside his own network's journalists at a dinner in Trump's honor. Let that sink in for a second. The journalists who are supposed to cover Trump are being celebrated at a dinner hosted by their own boss, a dinner that is also honoring Trump. The very same people who are supposed to hold power accountable are being wined and dined alongside the most powerful man on earth by the billionaire who signs their paychecks. And here's the cherry on top. The dinner was held at the U.S. Institute of Peace, except it's not called that anymore. Trump renamed it last year to the Donald J. Trump Institute of Peace. They've already put his name on the building. So David Ellison honored Donald Trump at a building that bears Donald Trump's name while waiting for Donald Trump's government to approve a $111 billion deal that would give him control of CNN. I need you to step back and look at the full picture here, because when you lay it out like that, it doesn't look like a coincidence. It doesn't look like a normal business dinner. It looks like something else. It looks like a transaction. And here's the thing. More than 1,000 Hollywood figures signed an open letter this week speaking out against this merger. Over 1,000 creators, writers, directors, actors, they wrote that the merger would mean fewer opportunities, fewer jobs, higher costs, and less choice for audiences. 1,000 people raising their voices. Did you hear about that letter? Did it make the evening news? Probably not. And maybe that's part of the point. Let's talk about what's actually at stake here, because I don't want to just chase a headline. I want to talk about what happens if this deal goes through and David Ellison takes control of CNN. Now, Ellison has publicly stated that editorial independence will be maintained. He said it clearly, editorial independence will absolutely be maintained. It's maintained at CBS. It'll be maintained at CNN. He's also said he wants CNN to appeal to the 70% of Americans who identify as center-left or center-right rather than the political fringes. On the surface, that sounds reasonable. That sounds like balance. But here's what I need you to understand. Editorial independence isn't just a statement. It's not just a promise. It's a culture. It's a set of decisions made every single day by the people who run a newsroom. What stories do you lead with? Which investigations do you pursue? Which politicians do you hold accountable? And which ones do you go easy on? And when your boss has a $111 billion deal pending with the government, and your boss just threw a dinner for the president whose administration has to approve that deal, those decisions don't get made in a vacuum. They get made in a room where everyone knows the stakes. Journalists inside these organizations are not stupid. They understand what it means when the CEO is cozy with the White House. They understand what it means when the boss spends $150 million to hire an editor with zero TV experience, but a lot of political goodwill. They understand what it means when the defense secretary goes on camera and says he can't wait for the new ownership to take over. You don't need anyone to say the quiet part out loud for the culture to shift. And look, this isn't a partisan issue. This isn't about whether you like Trump or hate him. This is about something much more fundamental. This is about whether the American people can trust the news they're getting. It's about whether the organizations that are supposed to hold all politicians accountable, Republican and Democrat, are actually free to do that job. Because once a news network becomes a tool for whoever happens to be in power at the moment, it stops being a news network. It becomes something else. And if you think that only happens in other countries, you're not paying attention. Now, I want to zoom out and talk about the White House Correspondents' Dinner itself, because there's something important happening there too. This dinner has been a Washington tradition for over 100 years. The idea is simple. The press corps gets together with the president. There are speeches, there are jokes, and the whole thing is meant to celebrate the relationship between a free press and the government it covers. Historically, presidents use the event to poke fun at themselves and at the media. Journalists use it to show that they can be human, that they have a sense of humor, that they're not just adversaries. Trump skipped the dinner for most of his first term, and this year, for the first time as president, he's going. He's attending the White House Correspondents' Dinner on April 25th. Think about why that might be. In 2011, Trump attended this dinner as a civilian. He sat in the audience while President Obama and comedian Seth Meyers publicly mocked him, mocked his birther conspiracy theories, mocked his presidential ambitions. By many accounts, it was humiliating for him. Some people who know Trump well have said that night may have actually been part of what fired up his determination to run for president. He sat in that room and he vowed that someday he would be the one at the top of the table. Well, here we are. Someday is April 25th, and this time Trump isn't a civilian sitting in the audience. He's the president of the United States, and the man who's about to own CNN just threw him a dinner 2 days before. Now ask yourself, who has the power in that room? Who sets the tone? Who decides what questions get asked and which ones don't? Is this a celebration of a free press, or is this a celebration of something else? Multiple journalists speaking anonymously to media reporters described this year's Correspondents' Dinner as unseemly. One called it farcical to have Trump as a guest of honor at an event that is supposed to celebrate press freedom, given everything that's happened to journalists and press access during his presidency. Don Lemon, the former CNN anchor who won't be attending, said it plainly. This dinner is supposed to celebrate the First Amendment and honor the people who do the work it protects. I'm not interested in dressing up in a tuxedo, sipping champagne, and pretending everything is normal. Here's what I want you to understand. This isn't just about one dinner. This isn't just about CNN. This is part of a larger pattern that you need to see clearly. We are living through a period in American history where the lines between big business, big media, and political power are becoming harder and harder to see, where billionaires are buying up news organizations not just as business investments, but as tools, as instruments of influence. Think about what's already happened. Elon Musk bought Twitter, now called X, and used it to amplify his own political views and support political candidates. He reportedly has enormous access to the current administration. His company, SpaceX, has billions in government contracts. Jeff Bezos owns the Washington Post. Amazon has billions in government cloud contracts with federal agencies, including the CIA and the Pentagon. And now David Ellison, son of Larry Ellison, Oracle's founder, one of Trump's biggest supporters in Silicon Valley, whose company is part of the investor group that now controls the American version of TikTok, is trying to buy CNN and Warner Brothers Discovery while throwing private dinners for the president. Notice the pattern. The richest, most powerful people in America are buying the institutions that are supposed to hold them accountable, and they're doing it with a smile on their face and a promise that nothing will change. This is not about one political party. Larry Ellison supported Trump. Bezos has sometimes been seen as more aligned with the establishment center. Musk has become openly MAGA. But what they all have in common is this: they're using media as a lever. They're using it to protect their business interests, to shape public opinion, and to build relationships with whoever holds political power. And the American people, everyday people like you, like me, are supposed to just trust that the news we're getting is independent. We're supposed to just take their word for it. Now, I don't want to leave you feeling helpless. That's not the point. The point is awareness, because the moment you understand what's happening, you become harder to manipulate. So here's what I want you to do. First, Diversify where you get your information. Don't rely on any single network. Don't rely on any single billionaire's platform. Read from multiple sources. Seek out independent journalists. Follow local reporters who are doing real accountability work in your community. Read the actual bills. Read the actual court filings. Go to primary sources when you can. Second, pay attention to ownership. Every time you see a story about politics or government, ask yourself, who owns this news organization? What financial interest does that owner have? What relationships does that owner have with the people being covered? That doesn't mean you dismiss everything you read, but it means you ask the question. Third, support independent journalism. I know that sounds self-serving coming from a YouTube channel, but it's true. The reason channels like this one exist is because there's a real need for people who aren't beholden to a $111 billion deal to tell you what's going on. We don't have Paramount's lawyers. We don't have a corporate board. We have a camera, a script, and a commitment to giving you the real story. Fourth, talk about this. Share this video. Send it to someone you know, because the only thing more powerful than a billionaire with a TV network is an informed public that won't be fooled. And there are a lot more of us than there are of them. Let me bring this all home for you. David Ellison is the CEO of Paramount Skydance. He already controls CBS News. He is trying to close a $111 billion deal to take over Warner Bros. Discovery and gain control of CNN. That deal needs approval from the Trump administration. While waiting for that approval, Ellison threw a private dinner in Washington, D.C. to honor President Donald Trump. The dinner was held at a building renamed after Trump. His network invited Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and Trump's Deputy Chief of Staff as dinner guests to the Correspondents' Dinner. Hegseth publicly said the sooner Ellison takes over CNN, the better. Meanwhile, CBS News is already reportedly shifting in a more Trump-friendly direction under the Barry Weiss era. Staffers are calling it state TV, and Trump, who spent years calling CNN fake news, who attacked and threatened the press, who boycotted the Correspondents' Dinner for years, is now attending it. Because the man who wants to own CNN just threw him a dinner. And the temperature in Washington has changed. Is this illegal? Not necessarily. Is it unethical? A lot of people in journalism think it absolutely is. Does it matter to you and me? Enormously. Because if the news you watch is being shaped by the people the news is supposed to cover, that is not news anymore. That is something else. We are at a moment in this country where the stakes for a free press are as high as they've been in modern memory. And what happens to CNN, who owns it, who runs it, what stories it tells, and which ones it buries, that matters to all of us, even if you've never watched CNN a day in your life. Because it's not just about CNN, it's about the principle. It's about whether the press in this country can still do its job, whether the people with power can still be held accountable, whether you can still trust what you're being told. Those are not small questions. Those are the questions that determine whether democracy functions or whether it's just a word on a bumper sticker. And that's exactly the kind of question that we are going to keep asking right here on this channel every single week. So here's what I need from you right now. If this video opened your eyes to something you hadn't heard before, share it. Copy the link and send it to one person today. One person who you think needs to see this. That's how real information spreads. Not through algorithms controlled by billionaires, through you. Drop a comment below. Tell me what you think about this. Do you think David Ellison can keep CNN independent? Do you think the dinner crossed a line? Do you think any of this matters? I want to hear from you because your voice is part of this conversation. And if you're not subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Seriously. Every week we are in here breaking down what's happening in Washington in plain language, connecting dots that the corporate media doesn't want connected, and treating you like the intelligent adult you are. This channel is not backed by Paramount. It's not backed by Oracle. It's not backed by anybody's $111 billion deal. It's backed by people like you who believe that the truth is worth knowing and worth sharing. Hit subscribe, hit the bell, and I'll see you in the next one. Because they're counting on you not paying attention. Let's make sure you do.